In case you didn't know.
All
right.
Yeah, I can see it.
Here we go.
I'm getting a little low on fuel.
What are you doing, Doc?
I need fuel.
Give me fuel, take a fly, ship me trace it out of sight.
Now, here are your hosts, John Eddie Jr. and Tom Tuttle.
Welcome to episode number 69 of Fantasy Fuel. Welcome because this is back-to-back episodes. We haven't done this in a while. There's usually been a shuffling the deck or a ride or something, but here we are 2 times in a row because we switched days. And with me is Tom Tuttle. He is here.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't done a shuffling the deck yet this week. That's why
Not yet.
What's going on, Tom?
Nothing much. I hope this episode's not too depressing for some people because we're going to make some people upset about some of these players.
Yes, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of feedback we get because we are doing, like we said last week, we are doing the top 10 worst landing spots, in our opinion, from the 2019 NFL draft. And it is going to be upsetting for some people, I can about guarantee that. But before we get to that, we do have a little bit of
news from around the National Football League. Yay!
Yes, just a little bit of news. And we're going to start with something that is just a little bit
like MJ. It's like so totally the cringeworthy player of like the week.
Yeah, it's not a player this time. It's a fan.
And no,
fan who happens to be a fan of the New York Jets and is an avid user of Reddit. And there's the subreddit for the New York Jets. He has already gotten a 2019-2020 Super Bowl champions tattoo of his favorite team. What say you about that one?
That's not going to happen, man. I hope so. I hope for his sake, and I hope for everybody's that's a Jets fan's sake, but that's just, come on. What are the chances that we win the Super Bowl this year? Oh, wait, yeah, this year.
Yeah, this year. Yeah. Unless he's talking about 21-19 and 21-20, I'm not 100% positive. So maybe he just thinks
now. Maybe he just thinks I can always get that last digit switched somehow. I could cover it up. Whatever. I don't know. That's crazy.
I'm sure he did it just for the attention.
Yeah, of course.
I don't think you're going to follow suit, but
nope.
Maybe if we got some fan support and they sent in some money to pay for a tattoo, maybe we could get that going.
I'd have to put it on a spot that nobody could see because I'm not going to get embarrassed every time somebody sees that.
Oh, come on. All right. I suppose. I mean, I'm still listening. If anybody wants to send some money out there for either one of us to get us a weird looking tattoo, I'm not opposed to the idea.
You know what else is cringeworthy? When the Eagles won the Super Bowl, there was an Eagle fan that ate some horse poop. I don't know if you saw that, but I'd like you to get a tattoo of that guy's face.
That guy's face. Well, I guess if enough people want to pay for that tattoo, I would not be 100% opposed to that. But we are way off track already. We've said one news item, and it wasn't even pertinent to fantasy football. So let's get to a little bit of fantasy football information. And for you IDP players out there, bad news for Jason Pierre-Paul. He has fractured his neck in an automobile accident. May miss the entire season. I don't see how he couldn't. Apparently, it's not, a super bad one where, he's not like, in a wheelchair or anything that I know of yet.
Right.
But that's not good. That is bad news for the Buccaneers, although that may, next person up for the Buccaneers, there could be a nice little stash in IDP. We'll have to look at their roster. Maybe that'll be one of my next ride visits.
Yeah.
I'll have to see what the Buccaneers have in store. But yeah, that sucks for JPP. He was such a promising guy up until he blew his fingers off the fireworks, and ever since then, he hasn't been able to get it going. So, any thoughts on JPP?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess he was, even though after he blew his fingers off, when he came back, he ended up coming back, and once he got right, he was back to his old self. Not exactly the JPP we remembered, but he was still very relevant. Now it's just sad news. There's nothing you can really say about it. So you can't. It's just too bad.
So anybody out there that's in dynasty leagues that have IDP, if somebody doesn't know about this news yet, see what you can get for JPP, or you're just gonna have to stash him on the IR, or just find somebody else. Got a little bit of quarterback news, a few different quarterback stories. We'll start with the Minnesota Vikings. Apparently, since Fran Tarkenton in 1973, no quarterback has started and played 2 full consecutive seasons for the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, wow.
Is that spelling doom for Kirk Cousins?
It's not. I mean, if Brett Favre can't do it, then I just don't know if Kirk Cousins can do it.
No.
Wow.
It's not a good sign. That's almost, what is it, 46 years they've gone without a quarterback playing 2 full consecutive seasons. That is one of the best stats you've brought into this studio. That's great. I mean, that 46 seasons or whatever it is, that's a long time to not have 2 consecutive full years. That's crazy. Really think about that. I bet you every other NFL team has had that. Oh, it got to have been. Even when they were terrible, they've probably had 2 straight seasons of somebody.
Yeah.
Sprinkled in here and there, but I guess sell Kirk Cousins. The odds are not in your favor right now for the last 46 years. Get what you can out of Kirk Cousins and run. Now let's move along to the Cowboys. They are saying an extension for Dak Prescott could approach $30 million a year.
Okay, go for it.
That's what everybody else in the NFC East is saying. Sure.
Yeah, do it.
And you're going to have to pay Ezekiel Elliott, and then you're going to have to pay Amari Cooper, and then you're not going to be able to pay anybody on your offensive line or your defense. So go for it.
Yeah. The one person you want to pay is Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, if you have to get a new quarterback, I understand you like Dak Prescott and you think he's your future. That's fine. But man, you gotta pay the guy that's your offense, and he's not your offense.
Since we're on the subject of the Cowboys, everybody out there listening knows that Tom and I are not huge fans of Amari Cooper, but we are taking over a team, a dynasty IDP team, and it has Amari Cooper on it. I don't know what we're going to do with him yet, but we actually have him.
He's on there. It's just, he's not a horrible guy to have on your team. It's just, I would never have drafted him in the first place, but inheriting him, I'm okay with.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm going to have to see how the rest of that league, their owners, how willing to trade they are, because I hope there's a Cowboys fan in there somewhere. We can get something out of him. I don't want to deal with that headache.
Yeah, I know. It's true.
Boy. All right. One more quarterback news. Drew Locke talked to Peyton Manning during his little passing academy. And Peyton Manning said, I set the all-time interception record for a rookie quarterback, and I'm waiting for one of you to break that for me. If anyone wants to do it, please go right ahead and do that. Get that done for me. So, yeah, anybody coming into the National Football League that thinks, oh, my God, I suck as a rookie, guess what? Peyton Manning had one of the worst interception seasons ever as a rookie. He did have the worst. So if he can do it and still end up being a multi-Super Bowl winner and a future Hall of Famer, then there's a chance. And Drew Locke, he has a chance.
Yeah.
I don't know how big of a chance.
We'll find out.
Yeah, I don't think he's on either one of our lists today. We didn't think it was a bad landing spot for him, but we just don't know if we have much.
Oh
faith
no,
in Drew Lock.
he's on my list.
Oh, is he?
He is number 10.
Oh, that's right. He just
Yeah.
wasn't very high on the list. Well,
Right,
you've already spoiled that for us. I don't even
Mhm.
know if we should continue on with the rest of the episode.
We're done.
No.
Remember to
Yeah.
stay fueled up. All
Yeah,
right.
all right. Anyway, we have one more sort of cringeworthy. I don't know how cringeworthy it is, but ESPN's Max Kellerman said, apparently with a straight face, that Larry Fitzgerald might be a Hall of Famer on the basis of longevity.
Might.
The number 2 all-time wide receiver in receiving yards and 11 Pro Bowls might be a Hall of Famer because he played a long time.
It's a surefire thing. Like it's going to happen 5 years after he says I'm done, and it's I don't understand that. It just, if you don't know any better, then just keep your mouth shut because he's going to be a Hall of Famer.
I sure hope so. As much as Larry Fitzgerald has killed the Eagles over the years, especially in that last NFC Championship game they played against each other, if he's not a Hall of Famer, I don't know what the Hall of Fame is anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly the truth. There's no doubt about that. He's a Hall of Famer, and if he doesn't make it, that would be the worst. I don't even care about the Hall of Fame anymore. If somebody like that can't make the Hall of Fame, yeah.
What's the point?
Yeah.
So, speaking of Hall of Fame, let's get into our top 10 worst landing spots from the 2019 NFL Draft.
That doesn't mean these guys can't make the Hall of Fame.
Oh,
like you
of
said,
course. I know.
Like you said, you can have the worst 2 years in your entire history and then come out and be amazing and be in the Hall of Fame. But there's reasons we have these guys there, and we're going to get into it.
All right. Well, since you already spoiled it, why don't you tell us about number 10?
Well, my number 10 is Drew Locke, and it's just because the Broncos' history recently of drafting quarterbacks has not been good. They need to stick to signing quarterbacks, which they did this year, which is fine. You signed Flacco, you did good, go for it. And obviously you did that with Peyton Manning, but the last quarterbacks they've drafted: Paxton Lynch, Brock Osweiler, Tebow, and I suppose you could say Cutler was somewhat successful, but that is just not a very good list of guys that have been drafted by the Broncos. Therefore, Drew Locke, you got a lot of work you have to do because it's not going to be easy. And you have to pass up Flacco first, which shouldn't be too difficult, but they got him there for a reason. So we'll see.
Yeah, Flacco's he's got to be there for some kind of mentoring purposes, and there's no reason for Drew Locke to get on the field this year.
That's my point, and I said that all last year with all of the rookie quarterbacks, and they all got on the field. It's crazy to me. They just feel so rushed to get these quarterbacks on the field when you can just let them learn for that first year.
And the problem is also that we have a few that have been successful starting their first years. So everybody just keeps rushing them out there, even though there's no real reason to.
Yeah, you get an Andrew Luck, and shoot, I'm not even going to say RG3 because he was successful that first year. You get the guys that are successful that first year, and everybody thinks, well, we can do that too. No, you can't. It's just look at Peyton Manning. That success was not there. And I guarantee you, if Aaron Rodgers was, he would not have had success. Maybe some, but it wouldn't have been like he is right now. You can't expect the world out of these guys, and it's just better to let them sit and learn.
Yep.
But that's just me.
It's not just you, but it feels like it sometimes because of how many quarterbacks we see come out there and have good years, even though their team's not successful, and they keep re-inputting into their formulas that this time it's got to work this time, and it rarely does.
Yeah.
They still go on to have good careers, so I can't say too much about it. But we'll go to my number 10. It's a double dose, and as much as I like having these guys drafted by my team, I think it's a bad landing spot, at least for this year. And then depending on how we go about the free agents for next year, Miles Sanders and JJ Arcega-Whiteside, they're not going to see much for targets and carries, at least initially. And I think they'll be good players, but they're not going to be good fantasy players. I've seen Miles Sanders go pretty high, even after being drafted by the Eagles.
Yep.
And I hesitate. I could not do it. I could not pull the trigger right now. I mean, unless it's a absolute dynasty league, you get to keep him forever. And I didn't like anybody else out there. I would take Miles Sanders, stick him on the taxi, and see what happens in a couple of years.
Yeah, and I had him on my list last episode for best scenarios. And we like we said, we didn't really specify whether or not it was dynasty or not. But Miles Sanders to me is the guy of the future. Jordan Howard, I know, is still relatively young, but I feel like there's going to be some kind of competition there this year. And you might be right. Maybe he doesn't do much at all this year. As far as JJ, not you, but JJ.
I have to get a jersey of that, don't I?
Yeah, you probably do. But as far as him, I don't know. That is a pretty bad landing spot. One of the reasons I didn't put him on this list was because I didn't want to make you upset. So I was just like, I better not do it, otherwise he's going to be really mad.
I mean, it's an amazing addition.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Wentz. Like, if you really, really believe that Carson Wentz is not going to be a good pro from here on out, this is the year that you could prove us right. If he can't run an offense and score points like he did in that year he should have won MVP, he's got Deshaun Jackson, Alshon Jeffrey. We still got Nelson Aguilar. He didn't go anywhere. We got Zach Ertz. We got Dallas Goedert. We just got JJ Arcega-Whiteside.
Mm-hmm.
We got Jordan Howard, Miles Sanders. We have every single weapon available on offense that you could possibly think of.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't do it this year, I might have to eat my hat.
Well, he's going to do it as long as he's healthy. And I think that's the biggest issue with almost everybody is the health thing, because he's been very inconsistently on the field. He's got to stay consistently healthy. And for that to happen, I don't know. I don't have any doubts that he can do it. I just haven't seen it yet. So we'll see.
I know. I mean, our first round pick was our replacement for, Jason Peters. So we should have at least some backup in case Peters does get hurt like he normally does for a game or two here and there. I'm just hoping. But again, fantasy wise, I'm staying away from these guys in redraft almost no matter what. And in Dynasty, it's a pick 'em and stash 'em kind of deal. Don't expect nothing this year. Let's see. Number 9, Tom, who do you got?
Oh, this is unfortunate for a lot of people that are around me. I just don't like the situation for David Montgomery. And that's too bad because I think he was one of my favorite running backs coming out of the draft. But he's on the Bears. He's probably going to see some work this year, but I just don't know how much, because Davis is going to take a lot of that from him. And I think they might, yeah, I think they might have a kind of 1-2 punches, but you got to think of Tariq Cohen too. He's going to be getting almost all the receptions. And I don't see hardly anything going to Montgomery as far as receiving the ball. So if you have him in a PPR or a standard, I don't think it's going to matter this year. I think that in the long run, yes, maybe he's the guy for that team to replace the Jordan Howard type of guy. And he's not that bad at receiving the ball either. But Tariq Cohen is a beast as far as receiving, and I just don't see them integrating him into the offense as much as a lot of people think they might.
Well, if I'm right about Mike Davis, then he will take some receptions away from Tariq Cohen this year. Not a bunch, but he is more of a pass catcher than Jordan Howard has been. So I think early on it's going to be a lot of Mike Davis, a lot of Tariq Cohen.
Yeah.
But then if the Bears are up and they're trying to wind that clock down, I think maybe David Montgomery will get some of that work. So everybody out there that wants David Montgomery to do good, they're going to need the Bears to score points this year so that they can have a lead going into the fourth quarter. He might be one of those guys that is matchup dependent. If you think the Bears are going to score a lot of points against the Cardinals and you want to take David Montgomery for cheap in daily fantasy, that might be one of the plays later on in the year if we see he's doing good.
Daily fantasy, I can completely see that. But as far as, I mean, dynasty, yes, of course, you have to draft your guys in dynasty. But as far as everyday, daily, or not daily, but weekly fantasy, where you keep all your guys and you don't really do anything daily wise, it's just not the greatest situation. If you have them on your team, I don't know why.
All right, my number 9 was the first wide receiver off the board in the NFL draft, Marquis Brown. That's probably not a consensus decision.
No,
but I just don't like Lamar Jackson enough to like any wide receiver that's on his team right now.
I completely
hope he proves me wrong. I hope he proves me wrong.
I just think that. I mean, go ahead if you still got more.
It basically just the accuracy is gonna need to be there to get it to Marquise Brown, unless all they want to do is bubble screen and slants and that kind of, and defenses can adjust to that. So he's gonna have to do more than that to be able to play to Lamar Jackson's strengths. Is going to take him out of the game, I think, because defenses will figure it out.
Yeah, there's a good possibility of that, but I just think that because he is, and this is what I said on the last show, because he was on my best list, because he is basically a surefire starter going forward. This is going to be just a good situation for anybody who wants to try and get a starter who isn't a superstar, because nobody really knows much about him right now, is that he's going to get plenty of looks and will be fantasy relevant. Whether or not he is fantasy, what's the word for it? But more than relevant, that will remain to be seen. But I just think that there is a good possibility for him to get a decent amount of looks. And if you get a decent amount of looks, you're definitely going to be fantasy relevant.
Yeah, I can't argue with you there. The targets are probably going to be there. Whether or not he does much with them, he might have 80 catches on the year, but he might also average like 7 yards a catch. And that's not good in fantasy. I mean, for PPR, you'll probably be okay as long as you don't spend too high of a draft pick on him, or, got him in the rookie draft and you didn't need him to be a complete starter on your team. But we will find out as soon as Lamar Jackson can take the field again, because all eyes are going to be on that Baltimore offense now.
Yeah.
They've got some rookies, some playmakers. And speaking of playmakers, I'm going to move along to my number 8.
Okay.
Because it's another couple of people that you had on your list last week. And those are the two wide receivers. Well, 2 of the wide receivers drafted by Arizona. It seems like they drafted a ton of them this year, but I'm talking mostly about Andy Isabela and Hakeem Butler, who was of mine before the draft, but I do not like the landing spots. I know I touched on it a little bit last week, but that is such a young team, and that is a good thing for the Cardinals. It is. If it pans out for them in a couple of years, they will have a star-studded offense, but I'm not sold on it quite yet. I'm not sold on Kyler Murray, and that's why I'm not sold on these guys.
Yeah, the only reason I really had them on my list was that because they were number 10. So the only reason I had them is they had time to learn together. I mean, once Fitzgerald obviously retires, whenever that's going to be, but they just had time to learn together and stuff. I completely understand why you put them on your list for this one. The only thing I will say is that I feel like one of them is going to be fairly fantasy relevant this year. We'll see, because Kyler Murray has to prove something first.
Yep, that's where I'm at on it. I'm not a fan of Kyler Murray's yet. Yeah, he's got some
Mhm.
tools, but I'm not sold on him. This was a very
Right.
not quarterback heavy year for the draft. So they're going to have to prove me wrong. And
Mhm.
yeah. Number 8 for Mr. Tuttle.
Deontay Johnson. I know a lot of people think that he is going to be competing for that number 2 wide receiver spot in Pittsburgh on the Steelers, but I just don't see it. To me, there's no way in my mind that he'll beat out Washington or Moncrief or both. Maybe he beats one out. But I can't see him beating both out for that number 2 spot. And that's just too much. There's too much experience with Moncrief, and flat out, I think Washington's going to be better this year. Going forward, maybe there's going to be something more with Deontay Johnson, but it's just a bad spot for him, because if he would have went to another spot, another team that was more wide receiver needy, then yeah, okay, I could see him being something. But in Pittsburgh, I don't see him being that number 2.
I can't argue with you much. We both have liked James Washington, the plays
Right.
he's made. He looks like he could be a legit at least number 2 wide receiver in this league.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Dante Moncrief, we've both kind of liked over the years, but he just can't stay on the field. That's what I think Deontay Johnson will be worth this year, is if Moncrief either just can't get it together with Big Ben, or he gets hurt like he normally does, and Deontay Johnson finally gets on the field for meaningful snaps, and if Big Ben trusts him.
Yeah,
If
and I
he
think
doesn't
that's
trust
about
him,
it.
Roethlisberger really hasn't trusted too many rookie wide receivers over the years. I think Juju was the first rookie wide receiver that really kind of got the ball rolling and then carried that over into his second year. But yeah, I wouldn't bet on Deontay Johnson, but I didn't have him on either of my list. It was kind of a, yeah, they need wide receivers, but they got wide receivers. So
Yeah.
who knows?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's move along to your number 7. I just mentioned something about multiple wide receivers drafted by the Arizona Cardinals.
Yes. First, I got to ask you a question.
Oh, here it is.
Do you remember who the very first wide receiver drafted with the first pick in the NFL draft was?
Just throw me the damn ball.
Keyshawn Johnson.
That's right.
We are going to talk about Keyshawn Johnson. No, not that Keyshawn Johnson, but the Keyshawn Johnson that was drafted in the 5th round by the Arizona Cardinals. I will be honest, one of the only reasons I have him on this list is because his name is Keyshawn Johnson. And
of course.
As I was scrolling through some stuff a few weeks before the draft, I saw his name, and it kind of, I was like, that's kind of funny. So I looked him up a little bit. And actually, this guy's actually halfway decent. Like, he can be a successful wide receiver in the NFL. So I was kind of keeping tabs on him. And then when I saw he went to the Cardinals after they drafted Butler and all this, and I'm just like, I don't like this situation for him, because he, according to everything I was reading and watching, he is a technician when it comes to route running. Everybody says he is one of the best, if not the best, route runner in the draft. Not like a double moves or anything like that. Wasn't really specialized in that, but he's just very, very crisp on his routes. So I was like, well, that's really valuable to me, and it's really valuable with timing for your quarterback. But if he is going to be stuck behind 4 other guys on a
Right.
on
we
an
still
offense,
got Christian Kirk too.
right? I know,
he's not bad.
And it's just like, this is just not a good scenario for him.
No, it really isn't. That's
No.
why I mentioned earlier all of the wide receivers that the Cardinals drafted. They're hoping they can stick. It feels almost like the Packers last year, except they didn't spend as high a picks as the Cardinals did. But it kind of feels that way. They got all these rookie guys, and they'll all be learning at the same time.
Yep.
And hopefully one or two of them, can prove themselves. But Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk are still there.
Yep.
But all of them are learning with a new quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be whoever can get in sync with Kyler Murray. If Kyler Murray is going to get in sync with anybody at all, again, not sold on him. But that's basically it. Keyshawn Johnson. I will love hearing that name again if he does.
I hope he
prove
has
himself
success.
worthy.
Yeah, that'd be great if somebody goes Keyshawn Johnson. I can't get it out of my mind. That's all I ever heard.
Now
for
I
a
know
long time.
the former Keyshawn Johnson of the NFL. He does some commentary. Does he do any actual like games, or is it just like commentary for ESPN and stuff?
I don't think he does. I mean, if he has to talk about him, I'm sure he's going to.
Right.
He'll be like, "All right, look at this guy, one of the best players in the league." Keyshawn
Yeah,
Johnson.
exactly.
You just need to throw him the ball.
No, we'll have to get that soundbite on as soon as I hear it. All right, my number 7, we've already talked about on Tom's list. He was number 9 there.
Yeah.
That's David Montgomery. I basically already laid out why I think he's not a great fit, or at least not a good landing spot for him there. They've got their guys in Davis and Cohen, and
Right.
we're kind of hoping that Trubisky kind of takes another step forward. And that's going to lead me into my number 6 already. And
Okay.
that's the wide receiver that the Bears took, Riley Ridley.
Mm-hmm.
We have to hope that Trubisky does take that step forward yet again.
Yeah.
And involves more of his wide receivers in the passing game.
Yeah.
Allen Robinson just isn't a stud enough
Right.
to demand the respect of the defense, so that they have to double cover him or, man over, any of that kind of stuff. And, Anthony Miller, he'll be fine, but he's nothing that the defense is going to be scared of. Trey Burton didn't have a lot really thrown towards him last year.
Right.
So how do they expect this new guy, Riley Ridley, to fit in when we really weren't using the guys we already had?
Well, I think for me, the biggest thing to get him involved in the offense is going to have to be an injury of some sort. And if that happens, which it happens often in the NFL, he could be something this year. But this is something that, like I said a few weeks back on my shuffling deck, when it was I can't think of his name. Allen Robinson. If he doesn't click within the next 2 years, they're not going to continue on with Allen Robinson. So it's going to be somebody, and it could be very well Riley Ridley. And I think, though, if Anthony Miller is banged up like he kind of was last year, he might slide into that role right there. They need something healthy, and they couldn't replace Miller last year when he got banged up, and it was just kind of like, So we'll see.
I do hope, though, that another wide receiver named Ridley scores like 3 touchdowns in the opening week, and everybody's scrambling to try and trade for him or pick him up off the waivers, and then he just kind of meh for the rest of the year. I mean, Calvin Ridley, I think, is going to be a good wide receiver this year.
Yeah.
But I don't know that Riley Ridley's going to follow in his footsteps quite yet. So,
yeah,
let's see. Moving along to Tom's number 6. Who do we got?
Bryce Love. This guy, I said this a few weeks back, and if he would have came out of college 2 years ago and not this year, this would have been he would have already been on a team, and he would have tried to prove, and maybe it would have just been a disaster.
Yeah.
But he would look so good that first year, or not that first year, but 2 years ago. And then last year in college just wasn't good enough. So to go to the Redskins, where he's going to be behind Adrian Peterson for maybe a year or two, whatever it's going to be there. And then obviously Geis, I don't see Bryce Love being anything special. If he can get back to that, what he was 2 years ago, we could be talking about a serious competition between him and Geis, but I think Geis has it pretty much locked down for the future. If Bryce Love would have went somewhere else where they were just kind of like, we need somebody, we don't really need somebody, then I get it. But they don't need another running back that has to prove something, because Adrian Peterson still has to prove to himself that he's the best of all time, because that's when in his head. And Geis has to prove that he can come back from this injury and be successful, which I think he can. And Bryce Love has to prove that he's not just a 1 year wonder.
Yep. Bryce Love. I thought about putting him on my list, but I kind of just felt bad for him.
Yeah, it is. It's
The
just,
issues he's had. I'm like, well, he didn't get drafted high like he would have been had it been 2 years ago.
right.
So there's really, fortunately and unfortunately, there's no pressure on him to be the future of a franchise. And
Yeah,
that
that's
could
true.
be exactly what he needs to
That
be
might
like,
be
hey,
true.
I'm here. I'm playing with house money, and I'm trying to beat one of the best running backs I've ever seen in my lifetime,
Right.
along with the guy they think is their franchise running back. But guess what? I'm going to prove them all wrong. So maybe if you got a chance, I would definitely love to stash Bryce Love if you didn't have to give up too high of a pick. But yeah. It is the absolute worst place for him to go if you're expecting anything out of him this year.
Yep. Completely agree. Couldn't have said it better.
And my number 5 is, my number 5, because I already did my number 6, is a running back as well. And I know you also have him on your list, but maybe a little higher. We'll find out. And that is Devin Singletary, drafted by the Buffalo Bills, which, it kind of is a good landing spot because he only has to wait for these old guys to go away. But they are still there. Frank Gore is still kicking.
Yeah.
Sean McCoy still has some stuff left in the tank. I know he does, but he had such a terrible offensive line last year. But then the kicker is the Bills signed TJ Yeldon.
That's the kicker.
So there you have it. He is 4th on the depth chart, but again, LaShawn McCoy has been injured, and Frank Gore is old. So if there's an injury there, and Frank Gore, isn't going to carry the full load,
right? Yeah,
and TJ Yeldon is more of a change of pace back, there's a chance, but I'm not liking it.
Yeah, I completely don't like it at all. I think it's a horrible spot for him.
We'll let you say what you need to say just a little bit. And we're going to move to your number 5 and a position that I talked about quite often last week.
That would be tight end, and I'm going with Irv Smith Jr. He's going to the Vikings, and this is just Kyle Rudolph isn't going anywhere. So it's just unless they want to run a 2 tight end set more often, I don't see Irv Smith Jr. getting many looks with Rudolph being out there. Thielen and Diggs are out there still. I mean, even if they do a tight end set, it's just not going to work. They got too many people that they can throw to. And they still have Cooks that can catch the ball out of the backfield. A healthy Cooks would really help for that. But it's just not a good spot for Irv Smith Jr. Kyle Rudolph's not going anywhere anytime soon. So it's just,
I don't think you're wrong, but I have heard rumblings here and there about Kyle Smith getting traded to the New England Patriots or something of that nature. And I'm like, okay, I need a better source somewhere, first of all.
You say Kyle Smith?
Did I say Kyle Smith?
I swear that's what you said, but
I don't know. Kyle Rudolph, one way or the other, if I said it or I didn't. I've heard rumors that somebody wanted to trade for him in New England, and if that happens, I think that would be better than Austin Seferian-Jenkins, but I don't know that they're going to trade much to try and acquire a guy like that. So yes, Irv Smith kind of buried. The Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, and Dalvin Cook. There's not much left for him. So let's move along to your number 4. We get back to running backs.
Trayvion Williams. Now, I will say, because you just drafted him.
Yes.
Where you drafted him was a good spot.
Oh, I was amazingly happy that I was like, he's still there. I'm like, I'm one Joe Mixon injury away from this guy seeing some touches. Like, all right, late fourth round and a rookie pick.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, completely good spot for that. He's going a lot higher in most rookie drafts. So Trayvon Williams for the Bengals, Joe Mixon. Unless he gets hurt, there's almost no chance that Williams makes the field. Giovanni Bernard's I can see how he could be pushed to the side a little bit. I could see that. But they also drafted Rodney Anderson. So this is a little bit of a competition there too. So we have to consider that as well. It's not a horrible spot, but it's not a good spot. It's really just a bad spot for him because Mixon is their back, and they're not going to go to Trayvon Williams without a Mixon injury.
Yep. I will say before I say who my number 4 is that he was actually on my list at number 3. So we don't need to move far for him, but I made this list up before the pick got to me in my rookie draft. And I was like, I'm about to talk about how he is in a terrible spot and this isn't good. I'm like, who else do I draft? I'm like, I'm still able to draft offense in a league where we play 11 offensive and 11 defensive players.
Yeah.
You can't ask for anything better than somebody I can stash on my taxi squad for a year, maybe 2. And then all of a sudden, bam, I got him for 5 years when he's actually touching the ball.
Yeah.
Again,
there wasn't a lot of offense left. There were still a couple guys there, and I
will say
one too, but
I will say that I was very happy when it got to my pick, and I looked, I'm like, well, it was about 4 picks before that, and I put in my pre-draft, and I was like, hey, Kahari Waring's still there. I can't believe that. I'm like, well, and tight ends are kind of a premium in our flag league. Since
they can definitely be.
I was very happy. Now I don't have another pick until round 7, but I was happy with my 2 4th rounders. So that being said, I will now announce my number 4 pick. We talked about him last week. Darryl Henderson. Is an absolutely horrible spot if Todd Gurley is going to be fine.
All right.
But they did draft him. I mean, the Rams drafted Todd Gurley when we all thought Trey Mason, who was like almost a rookie of the year.
Yeah.
Why do they need to draft Todd Gurley? He's got his own injury problems. And then he's proved us wrong then. Are we going to be in the same situation? It feels weird.
There's a possibility. I'd say this because he was on my list last week and he's on your list this week. It's almost like a coin toss. You just kind of flip one and whatever it lands on. Okay, well, that must be what it's going to be this year. If you want to take the risk, take the risk. If you don't, I perfectly understand it. There's no reason to take that risk if you really think Todd Gurley's fine.
And I will say this. Since most of the people that are probably listening at this time of the year probably are in dynasty type leagues or keeper leagues, if you have Todd Gurley, and anywhere in the first round you are, unless you're getting, Josh Jacobs or, one of the wide receivers that you really like their landing spot, you may as well just take Darryl Henderson with your first pick. So, you've got the running back in LA for the next few years.
Yep.
But that's about the only way I want to draft him because you got to hope for an injury. That's plain and simple. If Todd Gurley is healthy, Darryl Henderson is worthless. If Todd Gurley isn't healthy, Darryl Henderson could be the next stud running back. Yeah.
I'd say this. If Todd Gurley gets, and I said this last episode, if Todd Gurley has any signs at all, that's for me, I think they're just going to be, we're just going to let you sit out this week. And so I feel like, if there's any signs at all with the injury with him, they're just going to say, we don't want to risk it with you because he's a great running back when he's healthy. Unbelievable. He's one of the best, if not the best running back in the league if he's healthy. So I feel like they won't want to overdo it with him. So that's why I had him on my list last week, but I completely understand why he's on your list this week.
And if that ever happens and we know far enough in advance that Todd Gurley's sitting a week, bust out your daily fantasy because Darryl Henderson is going to be owned everywhere, and you're not going to want to be on the other side of that.
Right.
All right. And I already said my number 3 was Trayvion Williams. Who is your number 3?
AJ Brown. This is just it. Listen, the Titans did the right thing when they drafted him, but that doesn't mean it's a good situation. It's just the Titans. It's the Titans, and it's Mariota. I don't see that clicking very well. And even if it's Tannehill, I don't see it happening. It's just not a good situation for him. The Titans did the right thing. He's basically a starter right out the gates. But if you're looking for a starter that's giving you something, it's just not the right spot. It's not a good spot. Just like we said with Adam Humphries,
Yes.
it's just bad news for A.J. Brown to go to the Titans, no matter what quarterback is going to be throwing him the ball.
I was just going to say, we talked about another wide receiver in the same light. That was Adam Humphries.
Yep.
I'd read something not too long ago about the offensive passing, the rankings for the Titans since Mariota's been a quarterback, and the best year they have had since he's their quarterback was his rookie year, and that was like 23rd. Every year has been worse than that. I think they were 31st last year in passing. It's just a terrible fit. Yes, That's what the Titans need, but they're going to have to decide what to do with Mariota because he just hasn't been able to put it out there on the field. And I don't know. I know he dealt with a lot of injuries last year. So
yeah, of course.
That's
but
what it was. Maybe we'll see a rebound, but at this point, I'm over Marcus Mariota.
I am too. I think that's the whole point of having A.J. Brown on my list.
And that's why I have A.J. Brown at my number 2.
Hey!
So I don't need to talk to you guys too much about that. We just went through it. A.J. Brown, stash him if the Titans can do something at quarterback, maybe, but
yep, it's just yeah.
Yep. All right, let's go to your number 2.
My number 2 is Damien Harris for the Patriots. Now, listen, I know the Patriots got a very high grade in the draft, and rightly so. They did really good, but Damien Harris is just not a good fit right now for the Patriots because they still have Miele and they still have James White. Burkhead's going to be pretty much done. I feel like Damien Harris does take the Burkhead role. And I don't think that it's going to be anything good for him. If Michelle's going to be out there all the time, James White's going to be out there all the time. Damien Harris, and we know what the Patriots do when it comes to running backs. They just throw out all 3 of their guys all the time, and Papa, we don't know which one's going to be one play to the next play. And that doesn't serve Harris anything good. You have to have consistency. If you're relying on Harris, this is the worst guy out of the trio to rely on. I would much rather rely on Miele or James White.
The only thing, I didn't have him on either of my lists.
Yeah.
And that was only because as soon as you see Patriots and running back, you just kind of, your eyes roll back in your head and you're like, whatever.
That's
kind of where I'm right. That the same reason could be used for what you just said. Yes, exactly. So it's again, if you have Sony Michel, why not draft Damien Harris?
I could see that very well. Yes.
That's about it. There's no real other reason to draft Damien Harris unless you're hoping for an injury. But it's just Patriots and running backs. We think this year might be different, but we've said that before, so I'm not going to say that again. I'm not saying anything different ever about the New England Patriots. They are what they are. They haven't changed, and they're still successful. So who are we to say that, oh, yeah, this is a terrible move by them? No, I'm not saying it again.
I don't think it's a bad move by them. I think they did a great job in the draft.
Right.
Probably the only team that actually got an A+ ranking on almost every place that I've looked.
It's very possible.
And it's just the situation with him I don't like. So we'll see going forward, but I don't like it right there.
All right. We mentioned him earlier. I had him at number 5. He's all the way at number 1 for you. That is Devin Singletary. All right. Time for your rant.
Just basically what you said is spot on. But, I mean, I tell you what, McCoy and Gore are having this role this year, and TJ Yeldon is just not a bad guy. He's going – them 3 there is all they needed. They didn't have to go get Devin. So maybe 2-3 years down the road, yes, Singletary can do something. But this is not going to be this year. It's not even close to this year. If you're expecting something out of him this year, don't. I mean, it's not a good situation for him. You have to just, if you have a opportunity to put him in a taxi squad or something like that, yeah, sure, go ahead, leave him there for a couple years, and then maybe see where we're at there. But you don't even know if they're going to draft somebody next year or the next year after that. I understand why they drafted him, but for fantasy football purposes, just a really bad spot.
And to top it all off, how many backup running backs for the Bills that we thought all of a sudden were going to be to the forefront? Just something stupid happened to them.
What was that guy's name like 3 years ago? Gosh.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of it, of course, and now it's not coming to my head, but I was like, there's been so many. We thought the one guy, Jonathan something, that got signed by the Saints last year, like, oh, he's going to sneak in while Mark Ingram is out. And, well, of course, that didn't happen. I don't even know if he was on the roster by the beginning of the season. But, yeah, the backup running backs are not a place for the Buffalo Bills. Mm-hmm. You're there, and then all of a sudden you get one game, and, okay, here he comes, and then we never hear from him ever again, or he gets injured as well. There's so many bad things that can happen for Devin Singletary.
Yeah.
And I guess I should say not for Devin Singletary, but for fantasy football players and their hopes. Well, it just takes one LaShawn McCoy injury, and it just takes Frank Gore to finally call it quits. And you've got so much hope. And you're like, this is it. I've got my stashed guy, my lottery ticket. He is there, and then he's just going to disappoint you. That's what I have to say about young backup running backs for the Buffalo Bills.
And to say, I completely agree with you, but to say disappointment, you're going to put a lot of people disappointed right now with your number one.
What are you talking about? Disappointment?
Just do it. Ruin everybody's hearts and lives.
I am throwing this one out there because I hated it as soon as I saw it.
Yeah.
And you just told me how well the New England Patriots did in their draft. And you're not wrong.
Right.
But for everybody out there that was drafting N'Keal Harry at number 1 overall in their fantasy drafts before the draft started, anybody that took him over Josh Jacobs at number 1 after the draft happened, I have some bad news for you. N'Keal Harry is not going to be fantasy relevant unless Tom Brady is not the quarterback of the New England Patriots. It's as simple as that for me. There's a lot of reasons floating around in my head. Julian Edelman's still there. They re-signed Philip Dorsett again. And the running backs, there's a lot of things happening in that offense. We've seen great guys come in and try to be a part of the New England offense, like Ocho Cinco and guys like that. And they just signed Demaryius Thomas in the offseason too. There's so many mouths to feed still that I don't think, I mean, Brandon Cooks, we thought, oh my goodness, that is going to be an amazing combo between Brady and Cooks. And he did fine, but everybody was drafting him in the early second round thinking he was going to be the next Randy Moss. And one, he's not a tall wide receiver that Tom Brady can chuck it down the field to. And two, Brandon Cooks is just not like a superstar.
Right.
He is
Randy
a
Moss
great teammate. He's a great player, but he's no stud like Randy Moss and T.O. was over the years. And N'Keal Harry isn't going to be either. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry, New England fans. It might not even, you might even care that N'Keal Harry doesn't do good for you because you'll still be in Super Bowl contention.
Yeah, probably every year.
But
unfortunately,
anybody hoping N'Keal Harry is going to be that guy to be your last piece of the puzzle. Oh, I got this high draft pick and I just need that third wide receiver, my flex player, and that guy, he's going to be amazing. I'm sorry. I'm so off the N'Keal Harry train that it's not even funny. I'm not even in the same zip code as the N'Keal Harry hype train, and we'll see if he proves me wrong. But if he comes out and catches 3 balls a week, I'm going to remind you guys.
It's very possible. I see what you're saying. I hear what we're saying. The only thing for me is just why I had him on my list is if Demaryius Thomas is just a nothing, then I could see Harry just completely taking over that spot, and there's a possibility there for me. But when you got a feeling about something, you gotta go with it. And sometimes feelings are way better than anything else. So
we had some feelings last year that we were 100% spot on for.
Oh, yeah.
This is one of my feelings this year. Last year, it was Devontae Adams being a beast, and he was the number 1 overall fantasy wide receiver last year. And your feeling was Christian McCaffrey, and he was like the number 1 overall running back last year. So I think we've got some decent feelings about players, and sometimes we have them in the other direction. And
of course,
you had that with Derrick Henry last year, and you were right up until 2 games happened.
Yeah, that was really ridiculous. And he was right on track to where I was going. All of a sudden, they decided, you know what? You're our future, so we're just gonna play.
Oh, yeah. Let's see what you can do. Oh, really? Now that's just dumb. But that is kind of how I feel about N'Keal Harry. It's not the same type of situation, but that's the same kind of feeling I have. And I'm not going to back off it. I'm not going to change my mind about that. He is going to have to prove it in the regular season, even if he looks great in the preseason. I'm not backing down until Tom Brady says to me, shut your mouth, and then I'll shut my mouth. All right. We have officially gone through our top 10 worst landing spots of the 2019 draft. And that means we can talk about what I am very excited to talk about. We have been excited multiple times, but we actually got a chance to play around with the Poll Sports app.
Yeah.
And it is everything and more that I hoped it would be.
Yeah,
it is exactly what we have been telling you up to this point. So get on that link that's in the show notes, pollsports.com, or the link in the show notes, either way, and you'll get registered. And I think in about a month or so, there's going to be a beta test out there. And we got to play with it. It looks amazing. It was seamless. You just click and bam, it's done. Your vote is counted and you can see how many people voted like instantly. It's Yep.
You sent me the link to it and I was like, oh, great. This is awesome. And I went on and I was like, well, this is pretty cool. And then you said, if there's anything you want to change or anything like that, just let you know so you could tell the guy that's doing the actual app. And I was just like, oh, man, I couldn't say anything. It looked pretty awesome.
There was some technical things that I was like, oh, well, this isn't showing up correctly, but that's all going to be fixed bugs before any of you guys ever see it. And even if it were just like this, it would work just fine for everybody. But it's going to be streamlined for you when you get to it. And I can't wait to see how many people this is going to help throughout the year. So live, like real-time polls for if you want to trade or start them, sit them, waivers. It's going to be amazing. I know I've said it pretty much the same every week, and I'm going to keep saying it because I really do think this is going to be an amazing addition for any fantasy football fan, whether you're a hardcore guy like us and we're playing Dynasty all year long, or if you're just that guy that you get into it in late August and like, all right, when is my draft? It's going to help you too. So enough about that. We're going to hype that up all off season long. But we do have some social media places where you can find us. We're on Twitter at Fantasy Fuel. We're on Facebook.com/Fantasy Fuel, as well as Stardom or Situm on Facebook. Again, everything is in our show notes. I make it easy for you guys to find us anywhere you want. You can call us 608-492-3443. You can buy merch. You can do all sorts of things in those show notes. You can also see some audio dramas and my other podcasts that I do weird news stories on. SayItProductions.com/Average Joe Show and the Veiled Monarch audio drama. Any last words, Tom?
I'm good this week. Let's go.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And don't forget, stay fueled up. It's off season.